This is mid-cap radar. Typically, we speak about mid-caps, but today ITC is the stock on our radar, and that's because if you just take a look at the intraday chart, the stock is closer to the lower end of today's trading session. This afternoon, we got a report that came in from IiAS, which is a proxy advisory firm, and in its report, it said that it's advised the shareholders to vote against the company's proposed resolution to demerge the hotel business. Remember, the ITC shareholder meet is on June 6th to consider the hotel demerger. The key rationale for that is because despite the demerger, ITC will continue to hold 40% stake in the hotel business. So this transaction does not provide a complete exit from the hotel's business for the ITC shareholders. Additionally, ITC will have to, as promoter, continue to provide capital support to the hotel business. And at the same time, the board has not clearly articulated its plan for 40% holding in the hotel's business. IiAS also says ITC must provide clarity on the synergies it expects to by maintaining this 40% equity in hotels, and there is no clarity further on the terms of the brand usage fees between ITC and hotel business as well. Now, this is an important piece of news that is coming from IiAS, and also, a lot of proxy firms will be putting their views forth ahead of the shareholder meet, and one such is InGovern too. So we have Shriram Subramanian, who's the founder and MD of InGovern Research, joining in. Shriram, first up, if you could explain your position on the same and the rationale that backs it?
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. We have recommended that shareholders vote for the demerger. Effectively, when this demerger was announced last year, already shareholders were asking for unraveling of some of the businesses of ITC. So from that perspective, ITC had announced, and shareholders have been expecting that the capital support that ITC provides to the hotels business be taken in a separate subsidiary or otherwise. I think it would have been possible if it had been a subsidiary, but what ITC has done is more of an associate company with it retaining 40% shareholding. At the end of the day, yes, is there a logic to it? Yes, because at the end of the day, this is something that ITC is undertaking for the first time over a period of time, possibly with some like baby steps towards total unlocking of the shareholding itself. So from that perspective, there will be continued support or usage of the ITC brand. There is some uncertainty on the fact that what will ITC hotels give as royalty to ITC itself and what other supports. Obviously, there are common corporate functions. All these would likely be used by ITC hotels itself, but we expect that it will be positive for the minority shareholders of ITC itself, which is because it's a promoter-less company, all 100% shareholders tend to be benefited from that demerger itself.
Right. Shriram, one thing we want to ask you, it's been a long-awaited ask from ITC shareholders to go ahead and simplify the corporate structure, and this particular move was seen as one step towards that. But the main bone of contention appears to be the 40% holding that ITC will continue to hold as far as the hotel business is concerned. So what is your stand regarding that particular holding of ITC, and going forward, how would you like that to be simplified?
Obviously, the company was hard-pressed to explain this. It possibly could be to ward off any hostile takeover of ITC hotels itself. Two is it could be to sell off this 40% to a strategic player sometime in future. Three is probably this is the baby steps towards complete disinvestment over a period of time. So there are basically ITC is keeping various possibilities alive by having this 40% shareholding still. So while it doesn't have to consolidate the books of accounts, it would still be sort of getting benefits of the, I would say, that 40% shareholding to the accounts from a dividends perspective or whatever. So this is just I would think, a value addition, or possibly there are a lot of hotels in the development, and sometime in the future when they divest this 40%, ITC shareholders itself may benefit enormously.
Right. If I look at the shareholding pattern of ITC, around 25% is held by British American Tobacco. Yeah. You have another 23% by, the government held, 25% by government-held entities itself. You have the LIC or the SUTI itself. Do you not think ITC would have consulted these large shareholders before a move like this and the possibility of them having been on board with this?
I don't think there would have been one-on-one discussions, but as analyst community and investor community has for long sought that ITC should simplify some of its corporate structures, should divest some of these capital, I would say, intensive businesses like the hotels business for sure, and unlock value. So because when ITC stock was trading at 200s and et cetera, though it was generating a lot of profit, the stock price was not moving. At that time, the ask was much more compelling. I think now at 400s and all, so I think the pressure on the management to unlock value is reduced a lot.
So, fundamentally, if I look at contradictory calls coming in from both InGovern and, IiAS, the eventual belief is the same, but it's just that you think that by this move, the uncertainties will be ironed out in later future. And whereas IiAS wants clarity right now itself. They want, clarity on what the synergy value is, what will happen of that 40% stake, what that royalty is. Case in point, there is no clarity even after this goes by. What do you think should be one's view then?
So I think at the end of the day, obviously at each of the analyst calls, the ITC management is under pressure to explain some of these. Two is going forward, how will this 40% pan out? We'll have to see that. Three is obviously ITC Hotels as a listed company with 60% being held by public shareholders obviously could do well on its own, because it could raise capital on its own accounts and books and get debt funding, et cetera, which is because it's a capital-intensive company, it can easily raise debt on its books.
And finally, if, for instance, this does not go through, what do you think ITC will have to go back to the drawing board and reconsider this whole plan? What do you think happens next?
Yeah, well, see, obviously, if this doesn't go through, ITC need not necessarily go through the hotel demerger. The hotel demerger itself was asked from its own shareholders, right? I mean, analysts and investors have been asking for demerger of the hotels business. Just that the structure of ITC owning 40% is something that is some commentators and investors have were thinking against. But at the end of the day, possibly this is just the baby steps towards full disinvestment.
Thank you so much, Shriram, for joining us and giving us your points and giving us your detailed rationale as to why exactly you're urging investors to go ahead and vote for the proposal of demerging the hotels business. But that's all the time we have on this edition of Midcap Radar.